Reiss, I'm going to start with a very simple question. How are you feeling right now? Are you happy because you're guaranteed European football, or are you nervous because you could still get Champions League football?
Very good question. It's a little bit bittersweet at the minute because, as I'm sure you guys are aware, Forest have been in them spots in the Champions League spot for most of the season. I think it was 5 months was third, for example. And obviously over the last few weeks, we have dropped out now down to 7th, but we are still only a point off the spots. And it has been in our hands, but we've not been able to win home games, which on paper we thought we should have done. So, yeah, it's a little disappointed, I guess, we've not managed to stay in there, even though there is a chance. But from the expectations at the start of the season for Forest to get into Europe, the club's not been in Europe since 1996. So as a fan who's never seen Forest in Europe, aside from a pre-season friendly, it's a bit of a dream. And if City can win the FA Cup on Saturday, then we are at least guaranteed Europa League football. So, yeah, a little bit bittersweet at the minute, but it's still not over quite yet.
Are you okay with sort of, say you went into Conference League football, do you still view that as a big achievement? Because like you said, or is the perhaps a disappointment of dropping out of the Champions League spots overriding that at the minute, and you almost need the season to finish to get rid of that and go, actually, do you know what a bloody good season we've had?
So the Conference League, as you guys be able to say better than anybody, is a tournament which I think any English Premier League side, if there was to qualify through the league in it, they'd probably look at winning it because the quality of opposition isn't amazing. Let's be honest. I'm just looking at Chelsea's semi-final, for example, played Djurgården from Sweden, who they're not European powerhouses, are they? I don't want to be disrespectful, but they're not. I'm sure there was teams along the way when you won it who you think, well, these are no great shakes, and West Ham should be easily putting them to the sword as you did. So I think there would be a tinge of disappointment if it was to be Conference League because, it is frowned upon a bit, I guess, from an English point of view as like a third-rate tournament. But look, European football, I guess as well, the problem is as well, it's a playoff to get into it. So it's not like you automatically qualify as well. I believe you guys played Viborg, I think, from Denmark, didn't you, back then, to get into it?
I can't even recall, to be honest.
I've seen a list. I think Villa had Hibs and Chelsea had Servette this season from Switzerland. So, yeah, I think obviously the automatic qualification as well, I think that would be quite nice. But look, we'll just see where it takes us now. We've guaranteed at least some form of European football. So, whatever will happen now happens. I mean, Forest of old would completely blow Europe altogether. So to have that to fall back on at least is, quite good.
What's your prediction? Where do you think you'll finish up?
My head is saying that we've kind of just really the squad, because it is quite small, and usually in a lot of things, quality levels are, you look at the sides of the next two sides above us, for example, the depth Aston Villa have got. Ollie Watkins don't play, they can bring in Marcus Rashford, for example. Youri Tielemans don't play, they can bring in a £50 million centre-mid in Onana. Luca Digna don't play, they bring in Ian Matson, who was in the Champions League final last year. We haven't got that level of squad. Chelsea have spent a lot of money, as we all know. So I think watching the lads, and they've kind of just given everything, and we're kind of fizzling out a bit, as you've seen by the results over the last few weeks. We couldn't even beat a relegated Leicester City at home, which, for those who do your coupons as a home banker, really, you'd think. So probably, if I was to bet on it, I'd probably say 7th. But, there is still football to be played. If we can go and beat you guys on Sunday, then it'd take it to the last day. And we obviously play Chelsea on the last day. So we'll have to see. Hopefully, Forest have proved me wrong, and a lot of people wrong all season. So hopefully they can kind of prove me wrong. But yeah, being honest, I think watching is we just look really tired, to be honest. And that squad depth has caught up on us, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you need to be rooting for Man City at Wembley on Saturday just to get that Europa League spot as a minimum. And I think you'll struggle getting Champions League. I was surprised you didn't beat Leicester because, had you beat them, you'd be sitting in that Champions League spots at the minute. It's in your hands. You beat West Ham. You get a point against Chelsea. It could be and probably will be enough for Champions League football. Happy days. What's gone right for Nottingham Forest this season? Because from people that are watching this that perhaps haven't seen much of Nottingham Forest, why have you been so good?
Well, last season Nuno came in probably halfway through the season. So I think it's always difficult for managers to come in halfway through the season when it's not their squad. You guys would have seen that with Graham Potter this season. You sign players under a previous manager who might fit their style, and the new manager comes in and they're not in his plans. So Nuno obviously come in, he kept us up, which, by hook or crook, whatever way you want to say it. But in the end, we actually finished technically 10 points ahead of Luton if we wouldn't have got us deduction. So last season, we shipped set pieces, goals for fun. We was the worst in the league. So Forest, with conventional thinking, thought, well, we'll go on to the continent and sign the best aerial defender in Serie A, Nikola Milankovic, who's come in and been, in my opinion, player of the season. His leadership and organisation skills at the back have just transformed the defence pretty much. He's improved everybody around him. Matt Sells, for example, was someone we brought last January for £5 million, and he was probably 8th on a list of goalkeepers who was just brought in ready to fill the void because there's 2 goalkeepers that season in Matt Turner and Vlachodimos were terrible. And he's gone to be, goalkeeper of the season, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's something what Nuno's implemented. He is very much defence first, keep a clean sheet first. And then he's obviously got us in this counter-attacking system where, we've got 2 really quick wingers, especially Anthony Elanga, who's right up there with fastest players in the league. And then you've also had a season in Chris Woodward, who scored 20 goals, who I don't think any of us would have expected him to get that amount, really. I think probably double figures, maybe a dozen, but to get 20, he's been brilliant. So just the structure, really, and knowing we know how we're going to play pretty much. So that's been the catalyst. But unfortunately, the last few weeks, we've probably got a squad what's been designed to maybe finish 12th, 14th around them areas. And when you're flying high all season, it's levelled out and caught up on us a bit, to be honest.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see Chris Wood scoring come in. Even when he was scoring, I still didn't believe Chris Wood was scoring goals. I refused to get him in FPL. Then I gave in and got him and he stopped scoring. So I've took him back out. So don't worry, he's going to keep scoring. But on Sunday next week, because he's no longer back in my team. So he's back on the score sheet. In terms of next season, then, what's your hopes and aims? And do you have any worries? Because you've spoken about how you've hit a bad patch of form recently, 5 points in 5 games, and it's due to the small squad and fatigue catching up with them, and injuries play their part as well with Hudson-Odoi out, who's a big part of how you play. So with European football next season, are you confident that you will correctly go about the summer transfer window, make the squad stronger, and you'll be okay next season? Do you have any concerns? What's your hopes for next year?
No real concerns. I think, obviously, depending on what competition we're in is where we can kind of strengthen. We've got ambitious owners who, it's not like they're going to see Forest get into Europe and think they'll bank some money like other clubs. They'll go out and spend again. They kind of know us now what they're recruiting for. They'll obviously be able to attract better players because we're going to be in Europe regardless. So, now I wouldn't say I've got any concerns for being in a relegation battle or something like that. Yeah, there might be a bit of a natural drop-off because, especially for playing Europa or Conference League, because as you guys are aware, it's Thursday night, Sundays, and you kind of get that little bit of a drop-off, don't you? But we'll kind of have to see, really. The first season we come up was very scattergun recruitment because we was building a squad. But this season, especially in the summer, was a lot more structured. As I said, Milankovic being the key signing in that, and his first team's capable when they're all fit of beating pretty much anybody in this league. It's just that when there's a few injuries or we need somebody to come off the bench. We just haven't got that squad depth. So that's something they've got to look at, is improving that squad depth and getting players in who can compete with the players who are in the side. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I've got any concerns, but yeah, I think logic would tell you there probably might be a little bit of a drop-off, but we'll have to see. I mean, if Forest could finish, if they could finish in the top half again next season, I think that'd be a very good season for us personally.
Right, let's deal with the elephant in the room then. The man on the pitch who wasn't meant to be on the pitch after your draw against Leicester City. I'm going to hand the floor to you so you can speak as open and honestly about how you want, what angle you want to take. You can decide here.
Yeah.
But what's your thoughts on the whole thing, and also your thoughts on the media reaction to it as well? Because I think there's two different ways there.
Yeah, well, you know, conventional wisdom tells you that, yeah, he shouldn't really be on the pitch, because we know in this country how the media, you know, like to, you know, they suit the arguments to their own agendas, etc. It wasn't, if you actually do watch, he wasn't actually going towards Nuno. He's going towards somebody else. And then I think Nuno's kind of said, look, where you going? And he's vented his frustration at Nuno, not actually having a go at Nuno. But obviously I can see what it looks like. So yeah, I'm just kind of quite laughing about it, really, because obviously I see Gary Neville's tweet was just like a red rag to a bull. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, there's been an issue between Neville and the Forest hierarchy. There's been several comments made. He actually called Marinakis a mafia boss last season, which I think he had to basically apologise for. But you know, he was on the pitch, in my opinion, because he was frustrated, and that's because he was frustrated mainly because he's seeing millions of pounds likely go down the drain. So as a businessman myself, yeah, it will probably annoy you. And then he's obviously seeing the whole fiasco with Taro was allowed to play on when he was clearly injured, and that's not because of what's come out afterwards. Everybody in the ground could see he was clearly in a lot of pain and should have come off. So it was probably a bit of frustration. Well, it was definitely frustration, but I think there's been a bit of a mountain made out of a molehill from the media personally. But, you know, that does happen, unfortunately, in football. And I don't think Forest really producing another statement, kind of trying to control the narrative. I don't think that's going to wash with the media, unfortunately. Well, it won't. And personally, I've just moved on, really. I mean, there's not a lot in it, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I think obviously Nuno and very quickly Nottingham Forest came out and said, I don't know, it was nothing to do with dropping points or Nuno, it was to do with a miscommunication between the management and medical team. And when you watch it, Nuno's reaction when he's expressing his emotion, Nuno's not shocked or angry. If Anthony's exactly. Like, yeah, I know. He's almost like agreeing as well, which you wouldn't do if it was criticism of yourself.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
I think the reasons stand up as far as I'm concerned. But then when you see how Neville tweeted, and there's just no accountability afterward, he puts out his thoughts at the time, which I think have been not quite proven, but as good as you can get in terms of proving to be incorrect. But there's no backtracking, no accountability, nothing. I think it's a dangerous thing to do as well.
If Nuno was that offended, he'd come out, you know, and he'd come out and say so, wouldn't he? You know, and this was mentioned on Talks, but Nuno knows the character he's working with because he's worked under his management for a year and a bit, or a year and a half now. So he knows what kind of animal Marinakis is. He is a passionate guy. So it's just, you know, in England, it's that fine line of being a passionate owner, because on the flip side, there's so many clubs who complain that they never see their owner, whereas Marinakis is hands-on, and, you know, when we win games, he's in the tunnel congratulating the players. So it is a very fine line. But yeah, I do think Gary was playing to the gallery a bit there. But it is what it is.
Right, Reiss, from your team to my team, what do you make of West Ham?
I'll be honest with you. I think it's been a very disappointing season for you guys, because, you know, a lot of was made of the signings in the transfer window in the summer. I've never ever been a fan of Lopetegui personally. I didn't see that was a good fit, and I actually said that on my personal Twitter at the start of the season. I just didn't see that as a fit at all for West Ham. His football is quite similar to David Moyes, even though there's this apparent reputation. He played more attacking football in Spain, but that's La Liga and not the Premier League. So some of the signings I thought were pretty decent. You know, Wan-Bissaka is a pretty good fullback. I think he's done well for you this season. I didn't understand a few of the other signings. I mean, he might prove me wrong, but I thought Fulcrum was pretty much signed after having a few good games at the Euros, really. And obviously, you know, I was right in the fact that it didn't work with Lopetegui, or however you want to pronounce his name, Lopetegui, either way. And then, you know, you're in a similar scenario to us where you brought in Graham Potter, who, you know, is a completely different style, really, to him. And you really, the season's kind of going by the wayside because you're waiting for the summer, like with us next season, to see the manager get over his ideas and get in the recruitment he wants. Because he might, as you've seen as well with Manchester United at the minute, they want to play different systems. If you've not got the players to play that system, it's just not going to go down well. So, yeah, I think you'd be disappointed. I've been disappointed by, and I think you guys will probably echo that. You know, I mean, I can't imagine you'd have said at the start of the season that you'd have been loaning Ward-Prowse to us, for example, and in the end he's coming back to you because you can't get in our team, but he's going straight into yours, for example. So, yeah, I mean, the game at ours, again, I don't want to sound disrespectful. That was probably one of our easiest wins this season. I think was it Alvarez who got sent off that day?
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the most brain dead tackles I've ever seen on a yellow card. You know, because Alanga's literally running at full fly and he's decided to slide in and just bring him down. I just thought that was absolutely ridiculous. But hopefully it will get better in the summer as it did for us with Nuno last pre-season.
Well, just quickly, what happened with James Ward-Prowse? Was he simply just not good enough for your midfield?
So we started with Danilo and Sangare at the start of the season. They were the two. And Danilo unfortunately broke his ankle on opening day, and then Sangare did his hamstring. So that is why we signed Ward-Prowse, really. I think if them two would have been fit, he wouldn't have come. We also then we obviously got Elliot Anderson in the summer from Newcastle, who at the time we didn't know much about, but he's become a mainstay in the team. He's been absolutely fantastic this season. You know, Ryan Yates is club captain, so he's always going to kind of be in and out of the team. And then Nico Dominguez at the time was probably like fifth choice, but he basically got a little run under Nuno and he's been really good. So, Ward-Prowse played in the win at Anfield where he was really good and we won 1-0. But then he just didn't really get much of a pick. You know, he got himself sent off at Chelsea away where he made a mistake and then I think he pulled down. He
lay on the ball, didn't he?
Yeah, which actually worked out, but
yeah,
he just struggled to get in the team, and there's no point. You know, Forest said like his professionalism, and that was superb. But he would have been with Sangare and Danilo coming back around in January as well. He would have been like fifth, sixth choice. And if you guys want him back, it just made sense for him to go and play. There's no point in him, you know, staying with us. And you know, I don't want to sound horrible here, but we've not really missed him, to be honest. It's very typical that Forest have not scored a free kick since COVID, and we get probably the best free kick taker in the league, and we still haven't scored a free kick. So yeah, just one that didn't
we
really
haven't
work
seen him
out.
score one either, don't worry.
No,
we're also waiting.
Yeah.
Right, Sunday then, how do you see the game going?
I was a little bit disappointed to see you kind of break that barren run up and beat Man U away. I mean, Man U and Spurs have just pretty much given up, haven't they? Because they've got Europa League to think about the final. So that will probably give you a little bit of a boost with it being your last home game of the season, I believe. We've just chatted about this on our pod. The funny thing is we've needed results off you guys the last two seasons when you've had nothing to play for and you've beaten both Luton and Leeds on your last home game at home for us. So it'd be quite ironic it come full circle, you win against us. But from your guys' perspective, I'm kind of not sure what your guys are going to turn up. I mean, from a Forest perspective, like I said, we are looking a bit leggy. But we need to go out and win the game because regardless of what happens elsewhere, you know, other teams' fixtures are more favourable. It will go to the last day then, and we're in with a fighting chance. So I'm kind of not sure what to expect from you, but I have predicted on our own pod that it will be a draw. So I'm going to stick with that, really.
That'd be a disappointing result for you, I imagine.
Yeah, we need to win the game.
Yeah.
You know, make no mistake about it. We needed to win against Leicester. We haven't. We need to win to take it to the last day. If we don't, then it's unlikely it's going to go to the last day.
Well, you're saying a draw, but what's your score prediction? Get your crystal ball out. What's the score line?
I went for 1-1. I went for 1-1. I actually think we might go ahead and you'll equalise later on in the game as the legs start to tire. But hopefully I'm wrong. And like I said, no disrespect to you guys, but hopefully we can get a good win because the 2 times we visited the London Stadium, we've lost both times. So we conceded 7 goals in the process.
Well, Reiss, thank you very much. I've enjoyed your company. If you guys would like to hear more from Reiss and his co-host over at the Red Side of the Trent podcast, I'll put a link in the description below so you can go and find them. Quite simple. But anyway, best of luck with the race for Champions League football and best of luck in European football next season. You're in for time of your life. We had 3 fantastic seasons in it now. I will genuinely be rooting for you regardless of what European competition you're in. I hope you go on and do well. But if you guys have enjoyed this podcast, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up, subscribe to Hammers Chat, and I will catch you in a bit.